I'd like to now introduce Vadim Spice, who is the manager of our construction program up in Wellington. Vadim, I'd like to welcome you. Thank you very much.
Morning, team. How's breakfast for you? Great. Vadim Spice, and as Catherine Heller alluded to, we've started a series of draft mock assessments and pilots of our assessment tool that's just been developed. It's currently happening, so some of the information I give you is not fully validated, but really quite up to date. I'm going to talk to you about what how we've prepared for this and some of the issues and trends we're finding currently as we're out there inspecting mobile plant, and more importantly the operators in the workplaces that are using these things. It's titled The Good, Bad, The Ugly, but to be honest with you, things are pretty good. There's a good base to start from, so I don't want to look at things that are terrible and you need to improve. This isn't a chance to name and shame either. So I've tried my best to make sure that some of the issues identified doesn't identify any particular people, but things aren't too bad right now. So this is our draft assessment tool, and it's draft in the sense that the end of last year we got together with the local inspectors, in fact inspectors all around the country, some local companies and industry for feedback, and identifying mobile plant with the current amount of civil works and horizontal construction in and around our city. Mobile plant clearly was a hole on our list, along with other things such as asbestos, as Catherine alluded to. Hopefully you can see it, but hopefully you've seen this before, because part of our tool development was to make sure the industries, the associations had some input. It is not comprehensive. It's a quick, what we call memory jogger. It covers some main points that if you get some good answers in a conversation, things should be well. If there's a bit of a shrugging of the shoulders, we're not too sure, that's when our investigators and inspectors would delve a little deeper. So there are some things missing from that actual checklist. We're receiving good comment and feedback as we go, but things like common hazards were put into another document for our guidance to our inspectors, proximity to power lines, ground foundations, things like that. And operator competencies aren't on this list, but they're there for a conversation. We kicked off a couple of weeks ago in Auckland and last week in Christchurch for about a 2 to 3 week trial period of this tool. Although we call it a trial, it is actually active, so any issues we're finding, our inspectors are taking action. As you can see here, a bunch of our inspectors, we talked to some of the associations and we're invited into crane yards, concrete pump yards, digger schools and the such for a little bit of a mock run through. So it was really good too. It gave us an opportunity to not just inspect the machines, but look around the challenges that the operators face as well. It's, we're not there to inspect and certify mobile plant, we're there to see how it's being used. Actually, the concrete pump guy here in Christchurch hosted us as a sponsor of Sydenham Rugby, so we'll do our best to make sure he stays on the road. Some of the good things we've found already in existence. Again, this is in both Auckland and Canterbury. We want to make sure it's sort of a national front. Operator competency is pretty good. Trade qualifications in most cases, where they exist, which is mostly with crane and mobile elevator working plant. Induction and training on machines, we've sort of 50-50 on that. We might have an operator done a course, have a card, but really doesn't know the machine itself. Machine familiarisation is an issue with us that we're looking at. Attitude on sites has been pretty good. We've been welcomed. I think that had a lot to do with our communication stakeholder team sending out the tool prior to our kickoff, make sure that they're up to date with what we're doing and what we're looking for. This is definitely a collaboration. It's not us hiding and trying to catch anyone out at all. And the general condition of machines too. So we've found that the trend is that those machines owned by companies and with their own employees had a very good standard of certification and condition of their machines. An example of a card, this crane operator, good bloke, I blew his face out in that, but was really happy to show his card. He'd got a qualification, and his trade licensing isn't mandatory, but his company had put him through a qualification. He'd had that card in his wallet for a few years and had only shown it to his mum and his wife, so he's really quite happy, and the inspector turned up and said, hey, you know, what do you know about your machine? And then he duly went about, you know, quite proud of his machine, talking about how he maintains and works through. And so that's a pretty good common theme we've found in some of the larger machines. Certificate inspections carried out. It's just a good indication of your practices, your procedures, making sure your machines are current. I will point out though, although the machine's current in its certification, be it annual or 6 monthly, pre-start checks usually pick up things in between certifications. So where we've found some issues, the operator's going, it's certified, you know, some of the slides I'll show you later are actually on certified machines. So you're just good standard. Attitude on sites, general hazard controls, communication. This is a good thing to see. In fact, there's a site across the road. Sorry, I shouldn't have identified anyone, forget that. But the site across the road, no one's allowed near where the riggers are. It's totally excluded out. No one's walking underneath. Cranes in operation. You know, pretty good planning. So taken quite seriously. On aside from that though, we're finding that the practices aren't actually applied by the actual workers. You might have some really good policies, so there tends to be a bit of lack of communication. While we call it mobile plant inspections, we certainly want to make sure that they're talking to each other. We're talking about lift plans, how detailed they should be. I'm of the opinion that you should at least be chatting to your dogman, the hose hand or the spotter. You know, should know what you're doing. If it's documented, great, but at least a conversation. Too many operators are working and the team that's assisting them aren't fully aware what's going on. But generally, machines are in good condition. The operators are pretty proud of their machines, and inspection regimes and maintenance regimes are pretty well stuck to. The bad, so there is a reverse side. Again, this is a smaller percentage from what I just spoke to, but similarly, we're coming across too many people who've done a course and can't explain the emergency procedures or the bleed out valve or what do you do if you're in this particular EWP and we need to get you down. Bit of a lack of understanding around how to use that PPE. It's good to see people in harnesses but not hooking on the right place, not using the equipment correctly, or taking risks just because they're wearing a harness. So you know, a bit of familiarisation. There's formal training happening, but it needs to be more internal with what you're doing with your job and how you're applying the machine. Logbooks, big lack of logbooks and pre-start checks. Although some of the machines that are owned by the companies have got good procedures, we have found that some hire companies have let it slip with supplying operator manuals, logbooks, and conducting pre-start checks. So that's something we'll try to feed back to those associations. As I said earlier, this pilot's actually happening now, so it's quite hard to give you we haven't had a full debrief. Most of the information I'm giving you is anecdotal from the companies and of course from the inspectors. But when the Concrete Pump Association rings you up and says, hey mate, I've been getting phone calls, hey, these guys are a bit uppity, we didn't really think you were going to ask for that, you know, so what is active? Little things that might seem minor, but just give an indication to the inspector that, did you really check this machine? This is quite a large crane. And I know it's a hole, so we ask what goes in that hole. The pin that goes in that hole to stop the stabilisers or the outriggers going down in case there's an emergency are gone. And they never were there. So it only took them 2 hours to rectify it, but you know, this is a dead giveaway. There's a hole there, should there be a pin in it? Same crane, unfortunately. So a bit of excessive leakage. It was current, it was a hired machine, and you know, giving out leaks like this. Unfortunately, same machine. Everyone see that all right? We haven't found any majors, just lots of little things. And they're the indicators to us that things aren't going as well as they should, you know. This machine is with one operator, so that's fine. He knows how it works, but the next operator coming along, should he not be there for the shift, you know, probably doesn't take a good time to familiarise himself with how that thing works, so the decals and the directions are quite important. This is a bit of an issue we're finding quite commonly out there, the taping up of swing gates and guardrails. And also my concern was around how the harness was set up. This chap was wearing a harness, of course, and everyone who jumps in just hooks onto that lanyard that's really attached there, but knowing anchor points and hooking onto handrails, and actually as a result, he'd been hooking onto something that wasn't rated and in pretty bad nick. No pre-start inspections, no pre-start inspections, and a lack of understanding of exactly what is, hooking onto. Everyone clear on when you should wear a harness in an EWP? If you do, or why? Just because it's currently on the... And what about a crane man cage? So something maybe to think about or even ask back later on. This swing gate had been broken that long that it's starting to wear the floor out, And given the time that this thing might need to take a load as the person falls against it, it's not a good thing. This one's not a major. I just like the way it says tear here on a crane and you can actually do it. So, again, not a major, but just sends signals to the inspector. Is this guy really competent in his machine if he's not doing pre-start checks and picking this sort of stuff up? It's not a major for the functions of it. Well, you can debate that with me. I'm just saying that if it needs protection around the hydraulic hoses, it should be intact, and you can clearly see it's been like that for some time. This is a common thing with saying, and you can buy these hooks from a lot of different places, and most people will weld them on, and that's great. The certificate for this hook showed what it can take, but there was no sort of manufacturer's instructions or guidance about where the hook should be attached. I won't go too much into the lifting and centres of gravities and how you should know what the machine can take at certain distances away from the cab or the slew ring, but although the hook can say it's a certain amount, I assure you, there was no knowledge about what it could actually be operated at. So this is quite a common sight. I'm not saying hooks on excavators is a no-no, I'm just saying welding hooks on excavators without knowledge is a bit of a no-no. This guy thought his quick hitch pin was in, and we've covered across that in about 60 visits. About half a dozen of them have shown that the quick hitches are being used, and my colleague will talk about that later. But the fact that this guy thought it was in is a bit of a sad story. So the pin up the top is actually in a place for storage, really. And when asked by the inspector, mate, show us how that works, the bucket fell off, A couple of hours later, there's a pin in the right place and it's a new one and stuff like that. So we're quite happy to point some things out and see some immediate rectification. I coloured that in last night, so hopefully I did a good enough job. But it's not designed like that. Bit of a background story here. The truck was in between jobs and someone rang up and said, oh, can you shoot around and do that? In fact, it's a 5-minute job. It's going to be so quick, don't bother taking the machine off the back. And he took it literally. And the guys in the man cage knew when they came down, yeah, we thought so, but the guy driving the truck said she'd be right. So it is attached to the truck, so we'll give them that. Scaffolders adapting a EWP. They actually certified it. The scaffolders had a scaff tag on it saying, yeah, no, it's built right, sweet as. Two fellas and materials were on that, and up high, if you've ever been in those things at some height, they do sway a bit, but that was to save them driving it around a lot more, So, unfortunately, the scaffolder hadn't really done his homework because the handrail's one of those pop-out ones, so they're that close to the whole handrail tipping over, let alone the machine being unstable. Most of these pictures are less than 2 weeks old, a couple of days old here in Christchurch. Most of these are in Christchurch. That's just what I thought I'd finish with. Thanks very much.